Welcome to the Data Product Management in Action podcast, created and executive produced by me, Scott Hurlman, and brought to you by Soda, your best friend in data quality and contracts tooling. We created this podcast to serve as a place for actual practitioners bringing product management practices to data, whether that is to AI and ML, data products, platforms, or everything else in data, right? And it's to dig into the nitty-gritty of product management in data, but in fun and dynamic conversations. It's not just lift and shift from software product management. We have a great set of hosts for you that are also practitioners, so they can really get into those specifics and dive deep and get you the information you want to know rather than just high level, here is what a data product is. This is about cutting through the noise of data product management to drive towards actionable insights, hence the actual podcast name, Data Product Management in Action. So sit back and enjoy another awesome conversation.
Hello and welcome to the Data Product Management in Action podcast. My name is Nick Zervoudis. I'm your host for today, and I'm joined by Tefi Trabuchi. Tefi, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Nick. Thank you for having me. All good. Very excited to be here.
Really excited to be here, especially since we talked about doing this recording quite a few weeks ago, and then life happened and technical issues happened, but now we're here, and I'm super excited to get to know you or to let our audience get to know you as well. Tefi and I organized Barcelona's first data product management meetup a few weeks ago. Even though she doesn't live in Barcelona, she still made the trek and provided us with an amazing venue at SumUp's offices. I guess I've spoiled a little bit of what I was going to ask. So tell us, who are you? Where do you work? And then what's your kind of origin story as a data product manager? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I've been a product manager for the last 6 years. At the beginning of my career, I was more focused on consumer and products. But at some point in my life, I transitioned into data platform. How did that happen? It was out of luck, out of chance. I think nobody wanted to do that dirty work, and I appeared to be there, and I got that opportunity. Back in the days, that opportunity was for Glovo. There, we were building an in-house service for the data observability around the data governance umbrella on their data platform. Glovo has a very big data platform. A lot of teams are involved. The maturity level of the company and the data literacy inside Glovo, it was very high. And that's why the team was very big. And then I transitioned to where I'm at today. Today I work in SumUp as a data platform product manager. I've been working in SumUp for the last 2 years. Here my role is a little bit more broad because I'm the only product manager in the data platform ecosystem. So I manage 3 teams instead of 1. I manage a lot of layers that interact inside the data platform and different user targets, right? That correspond to the different steps in the journey of working with data. It's not the same generating data, transforming it, or even consume that data. As I was saying, I manage 3 teams inside the data platform. We have one that is for the data movement. Essentially, the teams take care of the data moving from source to target and making sure that the data between these systems keeps reliable. Mainly the target in this scenario are backend engineers and some data engineers. Then we have the real-time processing layer inside the data platform. This is also for technical users. And we take care of the operational and transactional data inside the data platform. And then we have the aspect of the data analyst, more on the business side of things, on the consumption layer side of things inside the data platform. Something that I did not mention is SumUp. It's a payments company. So we take care on transactional data and analytical data. And that combination, all of that happens inside the data platform. So it's quite interesting and challenging.
Awesome. And it's all of that falls on you as the only product manager. That sounds both cool and maybe a little, I don't know what the right word is. Not daunting, but I imagine there's some busy periods that get very, very busy.
Yeah. When I joined, I recall like my team back in then was only one team, and they were essentially doing my job and also their job. And what happened back in the day, of course, they're engineers, so there was no clear vision of where SumUp was going with the data and the data platform. How was data even going to leverage companies' advantages, let's say? That was like not structured or even, planned. And what happened is that the team was doing a lot of PM job. They were receiving a lot of requests. And since we didn't have back in the days a clear segmentation, okay, these components, what's the target? What's the goal that we're trying to solve to the users? How's the journey? Like all those things that PMs do. They couldn't say no to anything. So everything that they got requested, they were like, okay, yeah, we should do it because people are complaining and everyone wants a piece from the pie in the data platform ecosystem. So they advanced very, very slowly. They had like 1 million OKRs and they couldn't meet any of those. There was no clear vision. Back in the days when I joined 2 years ago, there was this kind of strategy, but it was very theoretical, on going full with data mesh. So there was a decision going full with data mesh, and we're going to be leveraging this with tools like Snowflake and dbt. Like those were the two new shiny things that we needed to make people to adopt and make people more efficient in working with data, like using these tools. But what happened back in the days is that there was not an analysis of, okay, what roles do we need to make this successful? Why are we focusing on the data analyst aspect of the data platform and not on the data creation, let's say, side of things? How is that trade-off or decision being made? Like, what's the justification right there? And I appeared at that moment in time before there was no PM working with this team. So it was like very, very challenging. And I think that what failed back in that time was this approach of being very theoretical with data mesh, like it was the new thing, new shiny things. All data platform teams were going full with that, full self-service, like, you need to, domain first and deliver the data product and this and that. But SumUp was not at the data literacy level to make that a reality. We didn't have the roles that we needed, to make that realistic and cohesive. There was this big question on who is owning the data. Is it you that you're consuming it? Is it me that I'm generating? We should meet in the middle and align. Yes, no, in which way, data contracts, all of that was like a mystery. And that was not determined. That was not aligned. And we didn't have the tools back in the days to make this a reality and push it forward. And in addition, with these tools that we were delivering, Snowflake, dbt, eventually Data Hub, we data platform were kind of acting as gatekeeping those tools, because the technical level you would need to configure something for Snowflake, let's say for configuring your resources in the data warehouse, were a little bit technical. You needed to interact with GitHub. You needed to do some stuff that some teams could manage, but a big portion of other teams couldn't manage. They were still blocking them. So that didn't work. That was kind of a failure. And I remember I was there back in the days and I was pushing up the brakes because there was so much stuff going on for all of the direction. The team was completely burnout. And we need to make a little bit of sense, right? Of, okay, where is it that we want to go? What's going to be our storyline? How are we going to contribute to SumUp goals? Where are we going to be focusing on and what is going to be out of scope? It was more in this dynamic of go, go, go. You need to deliver stuff. Everything touches the data platform. Everyone works with data today. Like the company relies on data. It is a lot. Go and deliver everything. And that was not our work. So back in the days, what we started, we introduced an artifact, let's call it, that is the narratives, written narratives. SumUp started working with this as a sort of the strategic document, let's say, to align internally with your team, with your tribe. Data platform belongs to the platform tribe inside SumUp, and also align that with corporate goals. And in the written narrative, to me, it was a very interesting exercise because, well, first you work very closely with your team, right? To understand, okay, where we are, where we want to go. I needed to understand SumUp strategy, where it is that they wanted to position themselves the current year that this was happening and for the next 3 years, let's say. What was the vision? What is it that they were pursuing? And when you do that exercise of putting things like in paper, writing things down, making like a storyline on which users you want to serve, back in the days, we decided that it was so chaotic working with data and interacting with the data platform. And the quality of the data was very, very poor, lots of nulls, lots of duplicated values. Like this is something that happens inside data platform teams. But the data at the source was very bad, right? So everything that came after it, it was a negative cascading effect that ended up impacting like the data analysts. They couldn't run their insights accordingly. The data was not reliable, all of that. So we made a decision to focus on the data producers, backend engineers, data engineers mainly, and all the other users interacting with the data platform, you'd have to wait a little bit because the priority was lower on their end. And that's how we determined, like, yeah, go ahead.
So let's talk about that a little bit more, because it's such a both interesting and classic situation. Like before having a PM, everyone says, no, you need to focus on delivery because, that's what it means to be efficient. And you realize that actually trying to do 20 things at the same time, not much gets done, things slow down. So from how you described it, it sounds like you came in and your job was a little bit to play bad cop, to be the one saying no. But also then your job was to help prioritize, okay, we're going to say no to a bunch of things. What do we say yes to? What I'm curious is, after you decided to focus on those like backend, more technical people as the platform team, was that take things that were in the backlog, maybe that they had requested already, and do those? Or was there also a discovery phase where actually it was not just take what's in the backlog for those teams, but coming up with new stuff for those teams, or working with them or asking them? I want to understand, what did that process look like?
Yeah, what we did back in the days, we had a lot of problems with the data ingestion component, that it's like a custom component that we built inside the data platform. There was a lot of back and forth with that, and that was causing a lot of troubles, a lot of spikes in the cost. It was a nightmare. So what I did back in the days, I organized a retro, let's say, with these main users of this component. They were mainly data engineers, backend engineers, and some machine learning engineers, and understand what was failing. I believe this piece back in the days was thought to act as a piece that moves data, ingests data from source to target, but also needs to be kind of a data contract because they have this data manifest in place where you declare, what is it that the data that you need, and also kind of act like a governance piece, introducing data quality dimensions, data quality checks. The reality was this component was not doing any of those things in a proper way. So you were like, okay, let's just stop. Let's focus on what is it the main job that you need to do as backend engineers, data engineers, and how can this component feed those needs? It was moving data from source to target, batch ingestions, also real-time ingestions. And we're starting fixing from there, like focusing again only on that. And then the aspects of the data validation, data quality checks came in place, not the data contract aspect of it. We just didn't go that route. It didn't make sense back in the days. And we focused on that. We didn't deliver something new, but we needed to fix what was there that was doing a lot of things and nothing at the same time.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, for it, it's still new, although they're new features, let's say, but not a new product, but it's new stuff. And as you were developing that, was it in kind of versions where, okay, version 1 doesn't have the data quality checks, but version 2 does? Or was it a kind of big bang launch where you had the retro, you got the requirements, and then you went and built it and brought it back to the backend team a few weeks or months later when it was all ready?
No, we did it version by version, and we were working like co-creating this with users, let's say, from that failed attempt that had happened in the past. It's like, okay, let's take this as an opportunity. And we did it with versioning. At some point, it's like, okay, we need backfilling to improve. Like the backfilling of this is a disaster. So we needed to automate that and work along with them. They were the ones like using and interacting with it. And ultimately, we needed to feed also business goals, right? Like we needed to help users solve their frictions when working with data, in this case, specific context, ingesting data, but also how you're going to translate that to the broader goals, the corporate goals, like from the business side of things. And that's always challenging because in data platform, you don't directly generate revenue, right? It's like you're more being judged of the adoption tools that you are pursuing or the de-risking factor of, I don't know, preventing fines or preventing frauds because of payments or preventing downtimes, that side of things. But we don't generate revenue directly, but the company, it's based on the data platform. So that's always a challenge, to make that translation from, okay, now you work with users, you identify the friction points, and you're working on an iterative way to, make this work, let's say, and make the piece stable. Okay, now we're moving data from source to target. We have a dashboard that says the data is reliable. Data is not being lost. We have some checks incorporated, DBT checks, nothing like too fancy or crazy, like very simple, and the things are working. Okay, what will be the next stage? How is this fitting, like SumUp?
I really want to touch on that, the question of as a platform team, when you're not directly contributing to revenue, how do you do it? But first, I want to ask a couple more questions about that initial scenario that you're describing, because how you put it, that, we started co-creating with our end users and building together and, releasing new features over time. For me, it really sounds like the way to do things, and all at the same time, not being distracted by a million other things. I'm curious, how did you manage that? Like, how did you manage to get everyone else to accept that the platform team is no longer going to be trying to fulfill their tickets, or at least fewer tickets, and that instead you would focus? Like, was there pushback? Did you have to go make friends with senior leadership? Or did everyone understand why it's needed and that they just needed to wait?
It's a very interesting topic. As I was saying, when I joined the company, the team was doing like my job in a very poor way, because they're not PMs, they're engineers. So they did what they could and they were super burned out. And I think there's an issue, not an issue, a characteristic, let's say, with working with data platform teams in comparison to end user, sort of product teams, that it's like platform teams tend to be very operational, very reactive. We need to keep the lights on. The tools need to, be working, no downtime. If there's an incident, we need to minimize that incident. And they were like sizing their work and the quality of their work with the amount of tickets that they solved. Like you were saying, like, oh, we have this amount of tickets and now I solved all these tickets. Boom, I'm doing my job amazingly, without asking the question of what need is this solving? Why are we doing this now? Should we do it? Yes, no. And that also has another downside, that I think that it's an environment that tends to be less creative. Like it's very platform operational, and that is also like a challenge when you're thinking around solution, workaround, how we're going to be versioning and iterating this, not the end sort of component, infrastructure component that it's super complete. It needs to be in iterations. So that was the first challenge inside my team, to get their buy-in, like, okay, the ways of working are not going to continue in this way. We're not going to go with that route of the number of tickets that you manage for granting access to X tool. Like, we're not adding any value there. And I needed to introduce very, very hard this concept of the journey, right? They even came to the user interviews that I did for them to have a sense of grasping, oh, okay, working with data, it corresponds to a journey. The user wants to do the specific actions, and suddenly there's a friction. Maybe the infrastructure is not clear enough. It's not self-service enough or automatic enough. They need to do a lot of manual things, and a lot of errors start popping up. And, it's taking them I don't know, a week. It's something that should take an hour, a lot of back and forth. They needed to understand that. Eventually they did, but they were very resistant with agile methodologies, with OKRs, all of that. They were the first ones saying like, hey, no. And then inside the company, like trying to shut everyone down and just focusing back in the days in the data producer aspect of it. Yeah, I had to fight back a lot. They were very much used to having a million OKRs that were framed in a very feature way. It's deliver X, Y, Z. Like that's not what we are going. We need to understand the behavior. We need to work with users. We need to understand what is behavior we want to change, and we're going to measure that with AR metric. But the behavior aspect of it, like the human aspect, I would say, of working with data, that was not the case. This is operational. We are platform. Boom, 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 boom. They didn't care about that. And it was a challenge back in the day. Now I think we have improved a lot. Like there's a mentality that has shifted a little bit inside SumUp, like being more product oriented, owning these narratives. PMs work very hard, work with our engineering manager counterpart, but also the team. But eventually the ones that we are pursuing the strategy for each of the teams is from the product side of things, because we frame things in a different way, like with the needs, the journey, with the frictions, like understand that. And it's gotten better, but I would say it's still a challenge. I think it's natural that you get a lot of requests, right? Everyone wants a piece of the pie. And you always have stakeholders that are going to scream louder. No, I know, I want this, and I want it in this sort of way. And you need to be very careful not to start, when you are doing the OKR exercise and all of that, you start scoring stuff, and it's like, okay, we're going to be delivering these initiatives. These are not, because I have scored them with the effort. But sometimes kind of the strategy becomes an afterthought, and it's like, oh, we had determined this, and there is what things start not making sense, because you're pursuing a long-term, let's say, success from a specific team or even the company, but it's not going to be sustained. So I would say it's a daily challenge. That it's an exercise that I need to remind myself not to get carried away with the go, and pay attention to the person that screams the most or requests the most, but also with the team. Like, hey, let's go back to the narrative. Let's go back to the vision that we have. We have the power of, making those decisions. We have the know-how. We have the domain knowledge. Like, we know. And even if we make mistakes, which we most probably will, we can pivot, but we understand the scenario better than other stakeholders that, their focus is somewhere else.
Well, and that's why you have a PM as a permanent role, right? Otherwise, you'd come in, spend a few months with the team, and then, just coach them and go away. I found the same. And for me, it's not just about, the skills and experience someone has, but it's literally what is your role at any given moment. Like in my last job at PepsiCo, I had it was like a platform PM role. And then I worked directly they weren't called PMs, but they were basically the PMs that then built on top of the platform. And of course, like I'd come from consulting. I was always focused on, how can the projects we're doing succeed? How can we deliver value? But in that role, as the platform PM, I was more focused on how can we make sure whatever these guys and my team build is kind of sustainable in the long term, that it can refresh every month, every quarter, every year, that, it's not just, okay, we're going to make everything work in a very hacky way because the initial phase is a big project and it's going to get seen by a lot of executives. But then after that, it's not going to be working. It's not, it'll be super manual to refresh. So in that project, I was always the one, with making the arguments in favor of refreshability and long term. And hey, guys, like, I get it that it's really tempting to use this data that's come off a random Excel document, but we're not going to have that Excel document a year from now. And then they would be focused on, okay, but look, we need to make some compromises because we still need this project to succeed in the short term so we can convince the business to do it more. So even though I'd been in their place in the past and I knew how to do that job, it really worked, and it was very helpful to have that, the two sides, the angel and the devil on your shoulders, where each has their specific role, and you're helping pull things in a specific direction. I also wanted to ask, so you mentioned that at first there was a lot of resistance by your engineering team on doing things different, working more agile and focusing more on the journey and the behaviors that you want to influence. Was there, can you look back and point to that, like a light bulb moment where it's like, when that happened, that's when people started going like, and from resisting to not? Is it like, I don't know, was it a presentation you made to them to convince them, or was it when the first results started trickling in, or was it super organic and there's no one moment that you can point to?
I think internally, when we were organizing, let's say, our sprints, I realized the team didn't have a good predictability when making estimations, and estimating is hard. We know that, and like all of that. But we couldn't predict each sprint, okay, how many stories can we tackle? How fast can we deliver this side of things? Everything seemed like a huge effort. And it's like, logically, that's not the case. And if that's the case, if we are tackling tasks that are so big, then we need to decompose them. Like, I was pushing hard on the decomposition aspect of the tasks that feed this user story, and scoring those things accordingly. I think that was a first aha moment for them, because I was trying to, understand the throughput of the number of Jira tickets and the points and all of that. And when I was looking at the reports, it's like, hey, this is not making any sense. The sprints are broken. How come no one ever paid attention to this? Like, no wonder the team is so burnt out. Like, look at the amount of tickets that they have, that are at the same level, granting an access with development infrastructure. Like, we are not learning along. That was the first one. And we made huge improvements, and huge commitments within the team that things needed to change in the way that we worked. And then another big aha moment was when I brought them to my user interviews or user retros with things that were delivered in the past, and try to understand user sentiment, try to make tangible the frictions, in the journey, not being general, oh, my data has no quality, I cannot trust the data. Okay, but when you set the context, you need to ingest the data, what's happened? What are the steps that you follow? How come no one asked you about this? And they developed infrastructure because they thought that was the best way, and that's not the way you work, And that sort of gap, they started realizing that from the testimonial of the users. And I think that was very eye-opening. It's like, hey, we're delivering infrastructure for people. We're not considering the human aspect of it. Someone is using this. They need to do specific jobs, serve some goals, and we need to help them. We need to enable them. It's not like, here, you have the infrastructure, you have the manual, you go figure it out. That's not the way. And I think that was very, eye-opening. We learned a lot from that perspective from the users.
I love that. And I found the same. It's so much more powerful if, instead of coming back and saying, guys, we need to do 1, 2, and 3, or even saying, I spoke to our users and I think we need to do 1, 2, and 3, to just bring them into that room more. If it's, you've received some feedback from a customer, forward it to you, show it to your team. And a lot of, I don't know, the more traditional logic is, oh no, you've got to fully shield your developers. Oh, they can't interact with the business. They can't interact with other people. And there's a lot of companies where the PM, especially when they're called PO, I've seen a correlation there, is just seen as a filter where every communication comes to them and they then filter it back to the tech team. And that makes it so much harder for the tech team to care, to really empathize with the user and the problem. So I love that. I love hearing stories of when this works, especially because I'm usually convinced that once you try it, it will. And like you said, that's when they started really understanding the benefit of working in that different way.
Yeah, and also we launched back in the days a CSAT service on a quarterly basis to also co-create stuff with users, keep on understanding them, kind of having a score of the experience, let's say, to make it more quantifiable, but also with open feedback. So we capture that along the way, and that it's information that the team needs to work on. When we are planning OKRs, that cannot be ignored. No, that's our reality. Like, what's happening on that front? Even if management is already requesting, like, go full AI and, like, make these crazy things. Okay, but we have this. We also need to focus on this and keep on delivering in that aspect and eventually meet other goals, right? Broader goals. But let's not forget about the feedback. Yeah.
I want to go back to the topic that you started hinting at, and I'm super it's one of my, let's say, passion topics. But I really wanted to understand this story more fully first, because I think it's super cool to understand. And I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are in a similar place to where you were at when you first joined, where it's like, everyone's focused on delivery, and how do I know maybe where I want the team to get to, but how do I get there? What are the steps I can take? So, on behalf of everyone, thanks for this masterclass on how to do that change internally. That was super cool. But then, so you're managing a data platform. You're responsible for 3 data platform teams. To me, that sounds quite expensive. A lot of people, a lot of salaries to pay. And I'm sure often, your finance department might see it similarly. So because you're not directly delivering use cases or, launching new products for customers, how do you work with the teams that do that? And do you work with the teams to do that, to figure out, okay, what's the ROI, not of the product that we've launched as SumUp, but of the data platform that might enable that? Is that something that you've done or you're in the process of doing? One of my favorite things to ask data teams about.
One aspect that it's important about fintech, like SumUp operates in the fintech domain, is that when you're delivering infrastructure, let's say, usually you have the user experience side of things and the business side of things that you need to fulfill. But in fintech, you also have the audits and regulations that you need to pass. And those play a very big role in platform teams. Whatever we deliver, we need to consider the regulatory needs factored in. And I'm saying this because on the aspect of the ROI and how do you show this, inside the company, for example, GDPR, like not complying with GDPR, with protecting, personal data, PII data, which imply to us, fines of 4%, 5% of the global revenue. So we need to be very strict in regards to all the infrastructure that we deliver. We need to always consider that it needs to reduce a risk, in terms of the fines. GDPR, it's an example. Everything that we develop should have an RBAC model in place, role-based access control model in place. Yes or yes, even if it's not fancy, I don't care. Needs to be there. And also audit trails. Any infrastructure piece we develop needs to have that, because we need to pass these audits. We need to go back, trace our data, have a control of every change that was happening inside the platform. In regards to this bundle of work, this fines, let's say, aspect of work, we work very closely with compliance team, but it's more legal. Compliance are the ones that are feeding us with this sort of requirements. Also, whatever we develop, all the infrastructure we develop, we need to fulfill. It's a template, to be honest. It's an info security template that we need to pass, and they're going to be regulating that internally. If we don't have that check, we cannot deploy anything. Even if it's for internal purposes, it's a no. So we need to work along with this info security team as well. And yeah, sometimes there are things that they request and we can do in a certain way or very iteratively. We don't have the full sort of aspect of it. And so we kind of work together, in understanding the context. But yeah, PII, I would say right now it's a very big topic inside SumUp, taking care of PII, masking PII and all of that. And our focus was directly into there. And how do you demonstrate the ROI in the risk reduction, in this case of the fines that you're preventing to happen for the company and saving the money in regards to that, right? And also there's the aspect of the downtime. We also provide a lot of operational sort of use cases. And if there's a big downtime inside the data platform that translates into a lot of money that's being lost. We are a payments company. So if something, doesn't sync accordingly inside the platform, there's a problem. Those transactions are lost and the company loses a lot of money. Even if it's a downtime of 30 minutes, that's like a lot of money. So we need to be like very strict in regards to that. Another important aspect.
I want to ask about this. I'm curious. You don't need to tell us the actual number, but do you have an idea of, how many euros corresponds to 30 minutes of downtime? Like on average, are you able to quantify that? Have you convinced the business that, hey, since we know that this is what that downtime is worth, and currently we're at, 99% uptime, here's how much it's going to cost to get to 99.5%, and, figure out if the number.
Yeah, we have that number per hour, how much money how much money that is, and if something breaks, then how much money we will lose, so that it's quantified in the downtime prevention work that we do for the real time operation.
Like it, maybe is it you as the data platform team knows that number, or is it that the business understands that number?
No. The business is already onboarded in this aspect. I think because they have had crazy downtimes in the past. I don't want to speak, but this has happened in the past and it has harmed them hard. So now they learn the lesson the hard way, right? But they are already onboarded. Like management is already onboarded, and we know if something, comes closer into any downtimes or anything similar, it's a P1 incident and all hands on deck, and it's an absolute priority for that to prevent that from happening.
Got it. So the way you look at the kind of ROI of what goes into the data team is about prevention, preventing downtime, preventing fines due to GDPR breaches. Is there anything, or is it more what you'd want to do in the future on the more value creation side, like not preventing bad stuff from happening, but enabling good things from happening?
Yeah, we also have, we have this aspect, this big aspect of the risk reduction, but then we have these two other aspects around. One, it's on optimizing cost. That is not something new. We are adding value to the business because they're saving money. And you as an engineer are more efficient because you are optimizing your resources, your queries, the way that you work, essentially. And also something important with this exercise on the cost optimization comes is people before were I'm going to run 1 million queries and I don't care if they took 3 days. They're just there. Snowflake. I'm not paying Snowflake. I don't care. And now they're taking ownership around their processes, right? It's hey, this responsibility comes also with the cost associated. It's not only that you're owning data set or the data management side of things, you're also on part of the cost and you're being judged by how much you're spending. That it's also a big transition that we did inside the company in the past months. It's ownership comes with this downside, and you need to take a look, attention into this. We're going to be providing the infra, the dashboards, this and that, but it's also your problem. Don't act as you don't know. And also the operational, let's say, efficiency from the users that we serve. Right? Before we calculate a lot these cycle times that take for some users to do some things. And we're always trying to decrease that to make it more self-service, more automatic, easier. When you need to migrate, okay, let's deliver this component to make a migration that is already super painful. Let's make it a little bit easier for them in terms of the number of steps they need to do in an automated way. They don't need to choose that much. We deliver the infrastructure and they can do this in 2 days. So they can plan it accordingly and we can work with them and make this a reality. And also in the way that they access the resources, to guide them to have an interactive, let's say, UI that acts like a data marketplace, let's say, where there we put all the or the main tools that we offer to the teams and how they can configure those, access those, because they have very specific contexts. A business domain in compliance is very different from banking domain. So the way they're going to configure their stuff varies a lot, and they have the know-how. So give them the key. We control that because, again, regulation. So we need to control that. We're like in the backstage, like, okay, this is approved, this is correct. But they are taking the lead in regards to that. And they are helping us evolve the data platform, right? Try to move from the de-risking part, which is very important and would always be like a business as usual because regulations are there, fines are there, so that, but then working along with users to make this more interactive, usable, and maybe some things that we developed in the past should be deprecated because they don't no longer fit an important use case or things have changed. We're transitioning to a new, dashboarding tool, whatever. So we need to work along with them in regards to the value, more tangible sort of user journey value.
That's awesome. I mean, for me, that's it. Like if you don't work with the users and you just go, oh, I think you need X, Y, Z, probably some of those things won't be right. And maybe they'll be half right, but not fully. I'm curious. So some of those, I don't know if they're metrics, but aims that you have, like how do I reduce cycle time? How do I make it easier for the users to access? How do you as the data platform team keep track and like measure those things? Is it formalized? Like you actually have literal metrics that you have a dashboard that you check once every week or month? Is it through surveys? Is it both? Like what does that process of the data platform team being data driven in understanding their customer feedback look like?
Yeah, we have a bunch of timestamp, let's say, in the key actions. So we know with the timestamp, okay, how long is it taking people on average before, and versus what we deliver today. So they are like, we have a realistic sense. If we are optimizing and not something that I've seen in the past is like sometimes data platforms teams start over-engineering things. And it's like, oh, now this data product, we can create it within an hour. It's like, wait, but do you need that? Like, does your business need that sort of efficiency and so fast? Maybe you can focus on something else that you haven't explored, and there are like some gaps. So you also need to be careful with that, not over-engineering the stuff. But yeah, we track those with timestamps, mostly with the key actions that we have. We have user interviews, like where I say like, hey, share me your screen and show me how you're going to be ingesting your data from Postgres, database to Snowflake. I have a sense of adding that sort of insights and nuances information to what we already have tracked with the PR timestamps, let's say. Then what I like doing also in interviews, I'm derailing a little bit, but it has helped in the past, is like presenting users with some false dichotomies, I call it. It's like, okay, what's more important for you when you're ingesting data? Is it the speed? Or is it the quality? There's no real good answer there, but probably they're going to be providing me with some more nuances and information that I can use for further insights or discovering stuff that maybe the user doesn't know and we don't know and it's worth exploring. And also understanding their body language, their tone. I work remotely. So to me, like, okay, let's turn on the cameras and pay attention to those details. It's also important to really understand if there's a pain and in which way or not, if they can tackle this perfectly and we can move to something else. So yeah, those are the things that I pay attention to.
Super cool. I feel like I want to ask 10 other questions about this, but conscious of time, let's get to our flash round at the end, and then I'll let you go because you clearly have quite a lot of things that you need to get back to work for. I don't want to take up all of your day. So first things first, where can people find you if they want to get more of these amazing nuggets?
LinkedIn, I would say LinkedIn is the way to contact and connect.
Cool. And your LinkedIn profile is going to be in the show notes for people watching or listening, I should say. Next question. What is a tool or technique that's helped you in your career as a product manager?
I would say lately it's this narrative that I was talking about, to have this sort of macro perspective and broaden perspective of the data platform and how you feed with the business goals and all that exercise. It was super interesting. I haven't done it like in global. We haven't done this, at least not me, like back in days. And this was like super interesting for me and also for the team, like understanding, okay, this is not only that I need to deliver this API service. It's like, it's more broad. It helps all of the people involved understand why we're doing what we're doing and also the how. I think before PMs were more, okay, PM defines the what, and then the teams define the how, and good luck. And that hasn't worked in the past. I mean, that was something that I learned also the hard way. It's like, no. We need to be very clear on the how and on the trade-offs. We are going to be doing this and we're not going to be doing this because it doesn't fit any goal at this point in time. We don't need that. We don't have the maturity as a team, as a company. And make that cohesive in sort of sentence by sentence help me, like gain that skill, let's say, or that understanding.
I love that. I'd love to see, I don't know if it's going to be a LinkedIn post or maybe you can present it at one of our Data PM meetup, but I'd love to see that in action, like an example, a template, what it looked like. What about, is there a book or, I don't know, a podcast, a newsletter, any kind of like key resource that you'd really recommend to data PMs and maybe especially to data platform PMs?
A book that I really love is Designing Cloud Data Platforms, because it not only provides the technical explanation of all the tasks involved in the platform and, and layers and why they need to exist, what happens and all of that, but also it makes a clear description of the user journey, that happens within that data platform ecosystem, providing example with custom pieces, with software as a service, like tools that you can hire or customizing those. The downside, it's very clear on the trade-offs, on the step and maturity level of the company. That was like super helpful for me. And then for the user interviews that I was commenting before, this book, Never Split the Difference, that it's more around negotiation. It helped me. Before it was very broad when I was like going to the user interviews, like, okay, tell me how's a normal day working with data, you in the sales team in SumUp? And that was too broad, it was like, I needed to set the context way more specific, but without biasing people into telling me what I wanted to hear. And I had to train myself to be better and making user interviews, paying attention to these nuances that I was mentioning, these dichotomies that I was mentioning, because there's always information that you can extract for there. And I think that book is very good. It's very clear. It has a lot of use cases, very different scenarios, but you can apply them to your daily work.
That's awesome. And Tefi, I want to say, like, this episode, I'm super excited for people to listen to. I think it's been, I'm not, exaggerating when I say a gold mine of best practices, things to follow, but also a reminder that a lot of the things that we face as data PMs, it's normal. It's part of the journey. So thank you. And with that in mind, is there any like parting message, final thoughts you want to share with everyone at home?
I would say the most important lesson I've learned the past months is to be clear when communicating, like to solving. We work in a very abstract scenario and you need to resolve a lot of ambiguities. So being very clear, very precise, even each document that you make, even put a glossary. Let's all be in the same baseline of what a concept means. Let's not start using synonyms. Let's all refer to the same things with the same words. And also you need to unpack that ambiguity when you're doing verbal communication. A lot of times, in corporate words like, oh yeah, I didn't ask that, I understood this. And the amount of time that you waste then aligning, okay, but what is it that you need? And the technical jargon, this and that, I think that's key. And also being clear with the trade-offs, with the clarity and communication, also being clear with scenarios, the trade-off, the scope of things. It has helped me a lot. So I would say, sticking to clarity and trying to improve that, try to decompose things in a simple and clear way. That sounds very easy, but it's very hard in a very abstract scenario.
Couldn't agree more. Keeping it set, it's so tempting to throw jargon and complexity, and I'm always, kind of playing dumb and being like, no, like this, we need to have the 5-year-old explanation version of this. I love that.
Yeah, and also asking questions. I'm never afraid of, okay, so what you mean this? What is this? Like, don't be afraid to ask because it's so ambiguous, it's so abstract that like, better ask, in the moment and then just, okay, give me an example, tangible example that I can apply. All this concept you're explaining in a, like 5-year-old should understand it. That's sometimes I think it's missing. And we all need to improve in that aspect.
Love it. Tefi, thank you so much for your time. Hope you have a good day. And
likewise.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you got some great actionable insights out of this episode. We're so excited to dig deeper into data product management and its many facets. If you want to engage more with the show, you can follow us on LinkedIn and check out Soda's website at soda.io for more related content around product management in data. And if you are a practitioner bringing product management practices to data and want to potentially be a guest, please check the show notes for a link to apply. And as always, we strongly encourage people from underrepresented groups in tech to apply. Much as I'm a handsome devil, we don't want all our guests only looking like me. So again, let's get excited for more digging into data product management in action.